Hello everyone, my name is Lena KrupinA, and today in the video we will discuss the most important scandal of the recent days that has surfaced in the Italian Rhythmic Gymnastics Federation. If you follow my Telegram channel, VK group or Facebook, you are probably already aware of everything. And if not, then firstly, why not yet? And secondly, you will definitely be surprised after the video. So let's start from the very beginning and understand what happened and how it all began. But before you start, do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, despite that fact that YouTube doesn't have monetization now in Russia. It is still important for me that our community grows here. The first prerequisites for the scandal began to emerge in early September. It was then that the Italian gymnast Alicia Aiello mysteriously and abruptly announced on her Instagram that she was ending her career. And then she deactivated her personal account. At that time, she was not ready to give any details. Alicia has already attracted her attention on numerous occasions and already had fans who love her unique style. And she has performed well in tournaments, so this announcement of her retirement was very unexpected. A couple of days later, information surfaced that Emma Brassanelli left the club along with Alicia Aiello. At that moment, the information was that the gymnast left due to difficulties in the club. And Alicia Aiello, after some time, wrote on her personal account for close friends that sport taught her a lot and means a lot to her. But if you come across a coach who humiliates and punishes you, then this makes you hate who you are, what you do, and it destroys your self-esteem. The truth in the end will come out sooner or later, and who knew that this scandal would come out so quickly? At that time, people wrote that the girl simply doesn't want to train anymore, and that's why she said such things about her coach that gave her a start position in sports life, and she was not grateful to her. The next prerequisite for a big scandal was the conflict between the federation and Beatrice Vivaldi, which came out just a week before the first article that started it all. So the fan community is outraged because of the injustice against Beatrice, who has archived competitions on her website since 2006. So the federation, after so many years, claimed the rights to this content and demanded that everything will be removed from the site. As I understand it, Beatrice filmed the archives herself with her father and posted it on the site, where there was also a forum. Since it is impossible to hide or download materials from the site, then all competitions since 2006 have been lost forever, and Beatrice was deprived of Fidge Media accreditation. The most curious thing is that the videos from 2006 were made with the consent of the federation, and were also used in the lessons and seminars of the judges. In fact, earlier the federation not only allowed to make records of the competition, but also used them. So one of the thoughts on why this started to happen and why the federation all of a sudden began to sue and ask for content to be removed was the discussion of the forums that appeared under the video records that Beatrice archived. As eyewitnesses wrote, the forum had inconveniences for the federation and some strange conversations about coaches, including from former members of the Italian national team. It is a curious fact that the matter did not end with the removal of materials, and on November 5th, Beatrice wrote on her website that she was closing the forum. Apparently, the federation pressed very hard, although everything is now emerging through the media, which is probably even worse and even louder. So did the federation do a good job for themselves, closing down this fan corner? And so this day came when, out of a small article, this grew into a big scandal. We have repeatedly encountered the fact that an article pops up and then everything subsides, but this time it didn't happen, and after one article, just a huge lump of victims surfaced. So the first official gymnast who publicly spoke and told her story was Lena Kordadini. On October 30th, an article was published in one of the well-known media in Italy. There, Lena spoke about the humiliation she faced in the national team. So in the article, she said that in addition to the hall and the room where she lived, the most frequent place that she visited was the pharmacy. At the pharmacy, she bought a laxative to meet the parameters of the national team. But even this did not help. Standing on the scales, Nina endured insults and humiliation. In the article, she also said that the purpose of what she talks about is to protect little girls who want to get into the national team, and so that this does not happen to them and they do not face such psychological problems. A psychologist with whom she has been working for a year helped Nina tell about her problem. Nina says that she was offended by the fact that for the coaches she was just a pawn, and in the national team there were no human relations between the coach and the athlete, and no one asked about her well-being. So the daily weight-ins in underwear, which took place in front of everyone, caused great trauma, and then the coach publicly insulted Nina for being overweight. The attitude of the coach to the gymnast varied depending on the weight. If you were within the limits, then you were treated differently, says Nina. For her, the number of weights reached 15 times a day. The laxative dehydrated the body, which caused an iron deficiency in the body. In 2021, Nina left the national team. Nina never talked about her problems with either her parents or her friends. The competition was high in the national team, and Nina felt guilty for being ill. Food became a nightmare, and she thought about the consequences of eating every calorie. Until now, she is faced with the fact that it is difficult for her to eat in the presence of people. The article with the words of Nina Kordadini caused a great resonance in Italy, and the Gymnastics Federation could not help but respond. So they gave an official answer in which they wrote that they did not tolerate any abuse by the coaches and were always on the side of the athletes, and they would immediately sort out the situation. At that time, I think many thought that everything would die out like that, since this already happened in the federation. But the gymnasts complained to everyone, but nothing happened. The next big article was the revelation of an even more fabulous athlete, BASTA. She became the world champion twice as part of the group team, as well as a European champion. Her story turned out to be even scarier, as Anna shared that she thought about suicide twice, but failed both times. As Anna says, she wanted to do gymnastics, but did not want to suffer, and in the end, she could not eat anything at all for 2 days. In the national team, she began to experience depression and panic attacks. She would not look at herself in the mirror, and each time, she thought that she would be judged for her weight. Mom thought that everything was not so serious, but Anna herself downplayed the reality so that her parents would not worry. As a result, the family found out about the reality of the situation only after Anya decided to leave the national team. It was Anna who said about the response of the federation that she tried to tell everyone, including the leadership of the Gymnastics Federation, but at that time no one did anything. Yana Batishna, after the published articles, shared that she was shocked that this was happening at national team level, and gymnasts still visit a psychologist when their career are long over. Yana also shared that she had not encountered this. They were weighed 3 times a day, and with an extra grams, they were sent to run an extra cross or refuse dinner. Now Yana said that in the Russian national team, they don't weigh at all, and each gymnast is responsible for herself. After the humiliation, Yana also said that there were none and no one went to a psychologist. But here I think we can recall the story of Alexandra Soldatova and say that in conclusion, not everybody responds the same to the same words. Some will not be affected at all, and others will bring themselves problems with eating disorders. After Nina Kordadini and Anna Basta, another story of the no less titled Italian gymnast Giulia Rossi surfaced. She won the world championship twice, and since 2013 has been an assistant to the head coach of the Italian national team, Manuela Macaroni. For Giulia, it all started as entertainment and then gradually turned into work. And at the age of 16, she moved to the center. There, she faced contrast weight control spiced with derogatory comments, which forced her to enter a whirlpool from which Giulia could no longer exit on her own. There was a case when she was shouted at for eating a pear, and in the general chat, they wrote that she was a pig and she needed to diet. So food became for Giulia something that can drown out emotional gaps. She ate when she felt condemned and alone. Giulia only knew about anorexia and bulimia and thought that her problem was just a lack of willpower. She ended up in the center of an eating disorder and was diagnosed with compulsive overeating. There is no cure for this, and Giulia is just learning to live with it. When it came to Italian gymnastics, of course, many had questions about the young star Sofia Raffaelli and Giulietta Cantalupi. Did such an atmosphere flourish in them? To which Nina Kordadini wrote on her Instagram words of gratitude to Sofia's coach, and I think she dispelled all the myth about that a young star with a world championship title faced similar problems. Well, the situation with the emerging stories continued to heat up. So the president of the Gymnastics Federation spoke very curiously, saying that complaints would definitely be studied, but it was strange for him that they all come out after so much time, and also mentioned the fact that in the past all gymnasts applied for admission to the staff. However, the investigation began and is very active. A line was opened where they receive anonymous complaints from athletes. Observers were also placed in the gymnastics center, where the team trains in groups, who monitor the atmosphere between the athletes and the coaches. The Minister of Sports of Italy, in his speech, said that the medals are not needed, which are obtained in an inappropriate way. While what happened once does not mean that happens on a permanent basis. Nonetheless, gymnast stories continue to emerge. The next gymnast whose story was also spread through the media was Alicia Aiello. By her texture, Alice was naturally slender, but she still got on the scales twice a day. Fear of getting heavier even by a strict gram brought an anxiety and horrors at night about weight gain to Alice's life. In addition to psychological torture with weight, she was pressured by the coach about her school. She went to an ordinary public school and did not study privately. At that moment, her father defended her, who specially came from another city to talk with the coaches and explain that education is important for Alice, to which the gymnast heard phrases on training that all gymnasts should be orphans. At the age of 14, Alice's body stopped growing. She remained small. It turned out that the development of the bone marrow had stopped. Headaches began almost every day. At the age of 15, Alice realized that she could no longer do this and moved to the Fabriano Club. After changing the club, everything that had accumulated over the years fell upon her body. So she suffered a fever and an infection in her mouth that made her unable to eat. Then hospitalization, fainting, and as a result, the body was brought back to normal, after which growth began. The phrase that struck her when she came to the Fabriano Club was that she was told that she had to put on weight before continuing to train. Alice also wrote on her social media that she was ready to endure sacrifices for what she loved, all the injuries and difficulties of training, but she was not ready to endure violence and humiliation, and that is why she decided to tell her story. This is how the stories of gymnasts, not only artistic ones, about their problems with eating disorders and harassment by coaches continue to come out. Some achieved medals in the national team, some failed to get into the main team, but most of the stories end with an eating disorder of various kinds and psychologists. Many stories that were not published, and the gymnast told about them anonymously. And Manuela Macaroni refused to give a full-fledged interview. Everything that was thrown onto the federation was all just lies. And a little later, an audio recording surfaced, which she recorded for the members of the federation in the chat. There she says that gymnasts who spoke out about violence are simply being manipulating, and society, parents, and schools who do not prepare children for life should be blamed for the scandal. And Manuela Macaroni said about herself that she is a wonderful person, loyal, and has always been honest, which is why she has been at the head of the Italian gymnastics for 30 years. The audio recording that surfaced, of course, did not play a plus for Emanuela. With the beginning of this scandal, Emanuela was removed from the post of the head coach, but according to rumors, she still continues to train the national team, though not in the main hall where the observers were attached. But she was supported in social media by Alessia Marelli, who is currently the captain of the Italian national team. She said that she did not encounter such problems that gymnasts write about. Yes, in gymnastics you need to monitor weight and nutrition in order to avoid injuries and give all the best. But for her, it never crossed the border. The only worst memory I have with weight problems is the comments on the internet about her weight, and her coaches always help to deal with this problem. The president of the Italian Olympic Committee, Giovanni Malago, also commented on this situation in Italy, and in his words, the thought that he said about Manuela Macaroni was more alarming. Given that she won a large number of titles, there is no doubt about her. A rather strange conclusion as for me, although I'm sure that Manuela herself acted within the framework, otherwise everything would have surfaced a long time ago and blamed her specifically. Well, at the moment in Italy there is a big trial, but it's true that no one knows exactly how it will end. So there are rumors that employers who are allied for the National Gymnastics Federation were involved in the investigation, which means that it is likely that all this will be hushed up or turned upside down, so that the federation and all who's behind such an attitude towards athletes gets away with it. In any case, the interrogation of the head coach and other coaches of the Italian national team should already take place in the near future, which of course I will first talk about in the Telegram channel and later on the YouTube channel. I look forward to your thoughts on this in the comments. How do you feel about the scandal, and what are your thoughts? If you have been with me for a long time, then you probably know how I feel about such things and have repeatedly raised this topic with other countries. In short, I am glad that this topic is becoming so relevant. I'm sure that in practice it is proven that it is quite possible to grow a champion in a healthy relationship between an athlete and the coach. Well, the topic of eating disorders is especially disturbing me. I know how much it all presses, and I sincerely hope that all these proceedings and new rules will help young gymnasts not to face such problems. It might be that all this is done to remove Manuela Macaroni from the head of the national team. So I am waiting for the truth to come out. And let's discuss this topic in the comments. I love you all very much. Be careful with your health, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.